You got a raise this year, maybe 3%, maybe 4%. This diagram shows the top-line math of a standard American salary. A 3% bump on a $60,000 baseline adds exactly $1,800 to your pre-tax income for the year. Your boss shakes your hand. HR sends the updated paperwork. And when you check your direct deposit, the number is definitely bigger. It feels like real momentum. But that feeling relies entirely on a closed system. It assumes the economy outside your office walls stayed exactly the same as it was the day you were hired. Then you take that new paycheck to the grocery store. You walk the same aisles and buy the exact same food. But the total at the register is higher than your last trip. You stop to fill up your gas tank on the way home. That costs more too. Your property manager raises your rent. Your utility provider bumps the monthly rate. You haven't added any luxury items to your cart. You aren't putting extra money into an investment account. Every new dollar from that $1,800 raise goes directly into maintaining the exact same life you already had. When the cost of keeping your exact current life running rises faster than your salary bump, your raise disappears before it can ever be utilized. Earning more money on paper while being able to afford fewer items in practice is a direct pay cut in your purchasing power. Purchasing power is simply the actual amount of goods or services that one unit of money can buy. This chart shows the relationship between your income and your daily expenses. Your salary creeps up by a highly visible 3%, but the cost of living spikes at a much steeper angle, totally eclipsing your raise. The salary bump is loud and celebrated, while the price increases are quiet and constant. Looking at this over multiple intervals, we see the cycle compound year after year. Your capacity to buy things actually shrinks, even as you string together consecutive raises. If you only look at the gross numerical value on your W-2, you miss the math of your actual financial life. The bigger number masks the reality of complete financial stagnation. My name is Alex. I spent 3 years watching my salary climb steadily. I was completely convinced I was advancing in my career, but my daily life required continuous effort and yielded absolutely zero forward momentum. I sat down one weekend and ran an honest audit. I compared what I could afford that day strictly to the baseline affordability I had during my very first month on the job. Increasing my gross income without increasing my purchasing power did not mean I was winning. I was just trapped on a faster treadmill. To build real wealth, you have to ignore your gross salary. The only metric that dictates your lifestyle is the actual purchasing power of your paycheck. You can calculate this deficit right now. Pick a routine, unmodified daily expense. A morning cup of coffee, your monthly phone plan, a standard haircut. Look up exactly what you paid for that specific, unchanged item 3 years ago and compare it to what it costs today. If that daily coffee costs exactly $1 more today, we multiply that single dollar across an entire year. That $365 is extracted directly out of your annual raise. You didn't upgrade your lifestyle. External price inflation simply absorbed the cash. This creates massive cognitive dissonance. Your paycheck visually proves you are earning more money, while your daily transactions prove you are living poorer. That gap between what your salary says and what your salary actually does is one of the most important numbers in your financial life, and very few people track it. But you are about to. Let me show you what is really going on behind the numbers. Your paycheck says one number, but the world you live in charges you a completely different number. And the space between those two numbers is exactly where your money quietly disappears. Imagine your salary is a literal measuring tape. Let's say last year, that tape was exactly 12 inches long. Expenses are blocks. Housing takes 4 inches, food takes 2. They fit perfectly within the 12-inch boundary. Now, costs stretch out. Housing takes 4.5, food 2.5. Costs grew, but your salary stayed rigidly the same, leaving you short. That tension is inflation. It is the specific mechanism that forces your fixed income to cover significantly less ground. It does not reach into your bank account and lower your balance. Instead, it destroys the underlying reaching power of the dollars you already possess. Let's make this real. Say you earned $50,000 a year back in 2019. To buy the exact same groceries, pay similar rent, and maintain that exact same standard of living today, your gross salary would need to be meaningfully higher. This requirement doesn't exist because your work is suddenly worth less. It happens because the currency itself physically weakens over time, losing its mass and buying less than it used to. So, if your salary has only crept up a little bit since 2019, you are mathematically further behind your starting line. An incrementally larger paycheck creates a dangerous illusion of financial progress, completely masking the fact that the individual dollars inside it carry far less weight. In most workplaces, raises are dictated by performance reviews or department budgets. They are almost never calculated around your external cost of living. Because of this, a standard annual raise of 3 or 4% routinely fails to replace the purchasing power that inflation steals over that same 12-month period. Economists have a specific terminology to separate these two competing numbers. They call them nominal wages versus real wages. Your nominal wage is purely the unadjusted, raw dollar amount printed on your pay stub. This graph shows how they interact. Your real wage is the actual purchasing capability of that nominal number, but only after you subtract the damage from rising market prices. Because these two metrics are entirely decoupled, it is a mathematical certainty that you can earn a raise at work while simultaneously becoming poorer. Think about a typical year where you earn a solid 3. It compounds annually, turning time itself into a financial liability. During the first few years of your career, this minor annual slippage is practically imperceptible. You barely notice the downward trend. But fast forward to the 10-year mark. A decade of unchecked compounding deficits results in a massive, overwhelming destruction of your wealth. You look back at a decade of work and realize the upward trajectory of your professional resume is sharply contradicted by the stagnant or even declining reality of your lifestyle. True financial progress is strictly measured by utility, what the number can do, not how big the number is. And if you don't recognize this invisible loss, specific behavioral mistakes will only accelerate the damage. You get the notification, your salary went up, but when you log into your bank account, the math doesn't seem to add up. You are making more money than ever, yet somehow you can afford less. Understanding why prices are higher is one thing, but accidentally making the problem worse is another. Without realizing it, the way we react to new income can actively destroy our own buying power. This chart shows how a rising numerical salary masks a hidden decline in actual value. A 5% paycheck bump looks like a win, but if everyday expenses climb by 7%, your actual capacity to buy things just dropped. Treating a higher gross number as automatic financial progress creates a dangerous illusion. You feel secure because the deposits are larger, but if you increase your lifestyle based on that illusion, you guarantee a long-term erosion of your wealth. And there are 5 specific mistakes people make to cause this. Mistake number 1 is treating a modest pay bump as an authorization for immediate spending. The new number hits your account, and it feels like permission to order more takeout, upgrade your weekend plans, and make a few impulse buys. But the math tells a different story. If your pay raise is simply keeping pace with inflation, that money is not extra. It is strictly required just to maintain your current baseline. This graphic shows what standing still looks like in an inflationary environment. A cost of living index is a theoretical price guide that measures changes in the cost of basic expenses like food and housing. When that index line goes up, your income has to run at the exact same speed just to keep you in the exact same spot. The first mistake drains your cash flow slowly. Mistake number 2 traps it permanently. That happens when you convert a small temporary cash flow increase into a permanent fixed cost. Variable spending, like those weekend dinners, can always be dialed back if money gets tight, but a longer phone contract, an upgraded car lease, or a pricier apartment are incredibly rigid and difficult to escape once signed. This diagram shows how increasing mandatory monthly minimums creates a disproportionately large anchor on your finances. Taking a slight increase in your paycheck and using it to lock in a higher permanent monthly payment instantly reduces your margin of error, right when everyday prices are already squeezing you. By committing a raise to new obligations, you surrender the precise financial flexibility you need to survive sudden economic shifts or unexpected bills. You are tying up your safety net before you even know you need it. That rigidity leads directly to the third mistake: calculating affordability strictly by the monthly payment parameter instead of the full cost. When money feels tight, breaking a big purchase into smaller chunks makes it feel manageable today. But extending a payment timeline mathematically increases the total amount of capital extracted from your pocket over the life of that item, usually through added interest. This calendar shows how those extended payments actively consume your unearned income. By focusing only on whether you can make a payment this month, you are committing cash you haven't even earned yet to past decisions. Over a multi-year horizon, those red payment blocks crowd out future raises before they even arrive. By the time your next bump in pay hits your account, it is already spoken for by a choice you made years ago. And waiting for that next bump in pay is mistake number 4. Far too many people wait passively for their standard annual corporate raise to fix a systemic income deficit. In most jobs, the routine yearly adjustment is a highly standardized percentage. If your buying power has been slipping for 3 straight years, relying on a single 3% adjustment mathematically cannot close the gap against a compounding loss of value. There is a persistent myth that simply putting in the time and waiting for the default pay cycle will eventually catch you up to where you want to be. Time in the market does not automatically correct an income disparity. Default time-based compensation processes are designed to retain employees efficiently, not to aggressively reverse your personal loss of purchasing power. Assuming the standard process will save your budget is a structural error. Mistake number 5 is using a peer's salary as a benchmark for your personal financial health. This split-screen graphic shows how identical gross salaries can yield completely different results. A coworker might earn the exact same top-line number as you, but their hidden variables, their housing costs, their daily commute expenses, and their specific debt loads completely alter the true value of that income. Comparing gross salaries tells you nothing useful about your actual capacity to spend. You have to establish your own internal ratio of income to local costs, ignoring the incomplete data you see from those around you. Letting a friend's gross income act as your scorecard is a critical data error. It distracts you from the mathematical reality of what is actually happening to your individual cash flow. All 5 of these mistakes share a cumulative trait. They create the illusion of financial stability. You get the raise, you make the monthly payment, and your gross income aligns with your peers. But beneath that outwardly stable surface, your buying power is quietly eroding. Your foundation is crumbling away a little more with every passing month. To survive this, you have to stop participating in passive financial behaviors. You have to recognize that waiting for the next modest bump in pay will not save your budget. It requires an active, structural intervention. Now that you know exactly what is draining your buying power, we can fix it. Next, we will lay out the comprehensive plan to permanently transition out of reactive spending, actively reverse this wealth erosion, and mathematically guarantee that your next raise actually pushes you forward. Every year you keep the same salary, you are quietly taking a pay cut. Your income is a static number, but the cost of the real-world goods it buys actively increases, steadily draining your purchasing power. Step 1 is to run an inflation check to quantify that exact damage. You do this by plugging your past salary into a free online inflation calculator, setting it to the year you earned it, and seeing what that amount translates to in today's dollars. This chart shows the mechanical comparison you need to make. On the left is your adjusted past salary, what your old paycheck would look like with recent inflation factored in. On the right is your current nominal salary. If the adjusted number on the left is higher than what you earn right now, your annual raises have failed to keep pace. This exact deficit shows the precise amount of ground you have lost. In 2 minutes, the nominal value of your paycheck is replaced by its actual purchasing power. This calculation reveals that a 3% raise often acts as a minor mitigation of a larger loss, rather than a real increase in wealth. Step 2 is to audit every recurring charge on your bank statement. You pull last month's statement and isolate every expense that repeats, from cloud storage to warehouse club renewals. This graph tracks a common trap known as subscription creep. Notice how these 4 distinct recurring expense categories quietly creep up over a 12-month timeline. Base costs rise even when you do not add a single new service to your account. Step 3 is to relocate your idle funds into a high-yield savings account, or HYSA. A HYSA is a deposit account that pays a significantly higher interest rate than a traditional bank, often with no fees and no minimum balance requirement. If your cash sits in a regular account earning close to zero, it decays. Moving even a partial amount, specifically the funds you will not touch for a few months, gives that money a mathematical chance to keep up with rising costs. Identifying these hidden cost increases and optimizing your idle cash stops the bleeding. It builds a defensive foundation, securing the money you already have before you attempt to grow your overall income. You now know your real salary picture, and your savings are earning more than they were yesterday. That baseline stability puts you in a position to push for more. Step 4 is to build a data-driven case for a real salary negotiation. You start by documenting your biggest accomplishments from the past year, specifically noting any new responsibilities you absorbed that were not in your original job description. This scatterplot graph maps out local market salaries for identical roles. By comparing your current compensation against external data for your specific area, you gather the evidence needed to prove exactly where your paycheck falls short of the market average. Step 5 is to execute an annual cost of living review. You pick one day each year to sit down and compare your spending in major categories, the big bills and the basics, against the previous year. These side-by-side pie charts compare last year's expense distribution against this year's. By isolating the exact year-over-year increase in your essential bills, you determine the precise percentage raise you need just to break even. That break-even percentage becomes the mandatory floor for any salary negotiation. You walk into your review not hoping for a favor, but presenting a mathematical necessity backed by clear data. Step 6 is to establish a secondary income stream outside of your primary employment. Your main salary is one lever, but it shouldn't be the only one you can pull. This can be a highly localized, accessible avenue. You can freelance an existing skill, sell unused items, or provide a direct service that people in your immediate area need. This diagram illustrates the vulnerability of relying on a single salary lever. When inflation creates a bottleneck on your primary main channel, a secondary, smaller tributary feeding into your reservoir relieves the pressure and keeps the system flowing. Even a modest monthly influx of a few hundred extra dollars provides disproportionate financial maneuverability, creating breathing room when base expenses tighten. Introducing a second income stream shifts your posture from matching inflation to gaining leverage over your financial environment. Step 7 is to implement a consistent, automated investment strategy. You do not need a large initial sum to begin. The consistency of the habit matters more than the starting amount. A high-yield savings account provides short-term stability and capital protection, but to definitively outpace rising costs over a long timeline, you need the compounding growth that comes from investing. You set up an automatic transfer, so a portion of your money routes directly into an investment account every time you get paid. It happens before you have a chance to spend it, removing the psychological friction of parting with your cash. While inflation tracks on a steady linear trend line, the exponentially curving investment line eventually surpasses rising costs. All investing carries risk, and you will experience localized temporary drops. This is why you only commit capital you won't need in the near term. Habitual automated investing acts as an engine. Over a period of years, it is the most reliable mechanism for building wealth that definitively neutralizes the threat of an inflating economy. A salary's actual utility is determined by the volume of goods it secures, not the specific digits printed on a pay stub. You now have 7 concrete sequential mechanisms to maximize that utility, protect your savings, and force your income to grow starting today. If this helped you expose what your paycheck really buys, leave a like. And as you know someone who keeps getting raises but still feels like they are falling behind, send this video to them. Comment the phrase "real raise" or "cut" down below. I post new analytical breakdowns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.